Based on previews and trailers for Valiant Hearts, my expectations were far from reality. That's not me saying that Valiant Hearts is a bad game. Valiant Hearts is not a bad game. But at the same time, it's definitely not a game for everyone. It's a highly polished and memorable product, but for a much narrower audience than what most hardcore gamers may expect it to be. I'll go as far as to say that Valiant Hearts is an important game. It shines light on one of humanity's most brutal and oftentimes most forgotten conflicts. Valiant Hearts is an adventure game, not an action game. It focuses on storytelling, gathering and using items, and puzzle solving. While there are a handful of moments of combat, they are few and far between, and oftentimes, those circumstances feel very puzzly. It's the story of 4 people and 1 dog whose destinies are intertwined. These 4 people represent both sides of the war as civilians and soldiers. Each level, the player must progress the story by finding objects in the environment and properly using them in the correct place. There are a few moments of action where the player has to avoid incoming objects, like cars on a road or incoming artillery fire on the battlefield. Instead, Valiant Hearts focuses more on aiding those around you, whether that be helping soldiers safely charge across the field, administering medical treatment, or rescuing people stuck under fallen debris. There is no glorification of killing. In fact, most enemy soldiers aren't killed. They're either knocked out, or they just run away. It's also important to note that it's an easy game. In fact, it's one of the easiest games I've ever played. I found the solution to most puzzles within a few seconds, but for the rare scenarios when it took a little bit longer, the game offered some help on the top of the screen, to which I declined. But it's nice to know it's there for people who may become stumped. Since it clocked me in almost exactly 5 hours to complete, it's not only easy, but it's short to boot. But it's also pertinent to keep in mind that at full price, Valiant Hearts is only $15. Visually, the game is gorgeous. Ubisoft's UbiArt games have been knocking it out of the park lately, and though the entire experience is done in a more cartoony comic book style, it still vivifies the horrors of World War I battlefields. And the whole experience is backed with a beautiful soundtrack that's worthy of experiencing on its own. And while it succeeds in these areas, I sometimes felt a bit confused as to what message Valiant Hearts truly wanted to convey to me when it would switch from horror and sadness to chasing a super cheesy villain in a Zeppelin. It's this inconsistency where Valiant Hearts is at its weakest. But as I sit in my office writing this review roughly 1 day later, I find that the game is sticking with me, and it's for a few different reasons. To start, Valiant Hearts has sparked my curiosity in World War I history more than any teacher, professor, or any other piece of media before it. No book or film or television show or other video game has had this type of impact on me about World War I. Though the hidden bonus trinkets found in the game add little or no value to the gameplay, I found myself excited about every bit of new history it unlocked. The bite-sized factoids in the game provided me with just enough background to enhance my enjoyment, but it also teased the information enough that it urged me to discover more on my own. And as a means of telling a story, I think Valiant Hearts succeeds. I had some genuine moments of both sorrow and elation. I cared for these cartoon characters enough that I wanted them all to see the war come to an end and get home safely to their families. Even with World War I as its setting, Valiant Hearts is much less about taking human life, but more about the preservation of it. It eschews the video game trope that killing equals winning. For that alone, Valiant Hearts should be commended. It's visually extraordinary, the music is gorgeous, and it brings light to an important part in human history. But at the same time, it's too easy, and sometimes Valiant Hearts trips over its own feet with what message it wants to convey, silly or serious. This one is for a very specific audience of gamers. If you're not certain you're a part of that specific audience, I'd recommend waiting for the game to go on sale before picking it up. But I certainly hope that every history teacher and museum that wants to talk about World War I will take a look at what Valiant Hearts has to offer.